Acelera is our 10-week long accelerator program where we're working with the best founders in Latin America who are at the pre-seed, seed stage.
This has been a really wholesome week, a really great week for me. We had the first Bando offsite in Mexico City, and it was amazing. Tether moving to El Salvador. I think that this is a huge win for the region. Who would be the next company to move to El Salvador in your eyes? NuBank keeps doubling down on crypto.
Like, what is the end optimal outcome here? Is it local stable coins? Is it everyone running on the dollar standard?
Great, so we're live. Welcome to another Frontera episode. This is a really special one. I'm currently in Puerto Vallarta. I'm gonna tell you why I'm here. I'm Av, founder and CEO of Bando, and also founder of Espacio Crypto. Kush, how's everything, man?
Yo, doing well, man. New Bad Bunny album dropped. Feeling the vibes. That's the kind of energy we need for this year, man. It's gonna be a great year. And I think this album like perfectly epitomizes the energy where Latin America's bringing to the world this year.
Bad Bunny is the most LATAM bull ever, I think. He's definitely taking LATAM culture to another level. Everybody wants to dance reggaeton. Everybody wants to have fun with Latin people. In all crypto events, we are like the sensation because I don't know. Suddenly we have these Latin parties and everybody wants to go there, and now we're cool and we're building
Hell
cool
yeah.
shit. So
We're actually gonna have a Latin party in Denver. So for the audience, stay tuned and follow along for the alpha there for what will undoubtedly be the most fun party at Denver. Like Latino
yeah,
parties always get down, so really looking forward to that.
yeah, definitely. And how's your week, man? I know that this was the first week of Acelera. You announced some really cool partnerships. I saw the picture of this metaverse. Where was the kickoff of Acelera? Tell us about it. How was it?
Yeah, man. So Acelera is our 10-week long accelerator program where we're working with the best founders in Latin America who are at the pre-seed, seed stage, and just absolutely crushing it in when it comes to driving crypto adoption in the region. So yeah, we had Skylar from the EF kick off our session, and Skylar just talked a little bit about kind of his insights from what he's seen in Latin America. You know, two DevCons ago we had a DevCon in Bogota. There's conversations of DevConnect being this year in Latin America as well. And then yeah, just Skylar shared some things he's super bullish on in the region. We've been jamming in our Gather, which is our little sort of like shared space. Which, by the way, any of the listeners here are more than welcome to join us. It's a fun little kind of metaverse and bunch of awesome builders, literally just like hanging out and building all day and night there. So it's been really fun to make that happen. We have like impromptu dance parties and yeah, I've had some great sessions. So looking forward to week two, but it's been an intense week. How about you, man? I know you've also you're traveling. You look all dressed up. You know what's going on there. Tell us a little bit more about where you are and what you're up to.
Yeah, yeah. It's a short day, for the first day in a year. So this has been a really wholesome week, a really great week for me. We had the first Bando offsite in Mexico City, and it was amazing. We invited some of our investors to talk with the team. Luis Enriquez, this guy is amazing. He's the founder of Bridge, one of the most important funds in Mexico. He's an angel investor of ours, so we invited him to our offsite. It was really cool, and also I don't know, man. It's just having 10 people that are building Bando in the same room, looking at a roadmap, looking at our objectives. It's just really, I say wholesome because this is one of the things that I visualized 1 year ago, like having a full-time team building this payments company on chain, making crypto spendable. It was really cool. And also I'm all dressed up because and I'm not that dressed up. It's just a white shirt, and it's oversized. So
It's got a
uh,
collar. It's got a collar. Come on.
yeah. I'm currently in Puerto Vallarta because the Felix Pago team invited me to their offsite. Obviously, I cannot talk a lot about the whole event and everything, but just super bullish on Felix Pago, man. Meeting the founders, they are great guys. We're gonna have them in the pod in a couple of weeks. Next week, I'm going to Miami. There's this demo day there. We're gonna be there. Also, we're gonna meet a couple of fellow people from the community there. Um, just the vibe is so energetic. If you look at the numbers of Felix Pago, um, today they in LinkedIn they have more than 100 employees. 1 year ago they were 30. They're growing like crazy. I seriously think they are the most exciting crypto company in Latin America today. I don't know what's your take on
Huge.
them.
Tell us. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this natural integration between WhatsApp, which is super ubiquitous. That's one of the insights Skylar shared. He hates the term emerging economies, which I think is like so true, or underdeveloped economies, right? Like this notion that Latin America or Asia is an underdeveloped economy. There's a lot of reasons as to like why we're even pegged as such, but really he sees them as leapfrog economies. And he gave the example of SMS, right? And how a majority of our communications today in Latin America happens on WhatsApp, which is a much better communications protocol than say something like iMessage, right? iMessage is just like iPhone to iPhone. WhatsApp is completely interoperable, works globally as well, is by and large quite reliable to end encrypted as well. So and we were able to basically like leapfrog SMS and jump straight into WhatsApp communications, and that's exactly what we're going to be replicating with these new financial systems, with these new governance system as well, because we just have this really crumbling infrastructure and all this like super exciting technology that's emerging in the region, right? So I think the notion of a leapfrog economy is 100% the way to go, and this is like something like Felix Pago just proves that what you guys are building with Bando, what all these incredible teams from the region are doing is really a testament to the fact that we're going to totally leapfrog these sort of traditional development models, leveraging these innovative technologies, man. So, oh my God, I think if we got paid like every time we said the word bullish, I think we'd be pretty well off. But I think it just genuinely just sums it up. Just the excitement that is just percolating here is awesome, man. So, but anyways, I know we got a few other things to run through. And happy to kind of go through the docket and speak to those.
Yeah, perfect. So the first, I think that this is a week with a couple of really big news, and we wanted to keep it short because we can talk about a lot about different things happening, but the events that happened this week, they were huge. The first one is Tether moving to El Salvador. I think that this is a huge, huge, huge win for the region, a huge win for El Salvador. They obtained a DASP license, that's the Digital Asset Service Provider license. That's a really a thorough process. I know it well, and they will be migrating their operations to El Salvador. And I think that this is just a landmark of how Nayib Bukele's like bullishness towards crypto and an open regulation towards this industry is having a huge economic impact. Will have a huge economic impact in El Salvador. Why do I say this? Because Tether is one of the most profitable companies in our industry. I'm gonna check the numbers, but they made a couple $1 billion in profit last year, and moving their operations to El Salvador it points out that this regulatory framework that El Salvador is implementing is really working. What's your take? Because Tether is one of the top three most important companies in crypto on my site.
I mean, just as a business model, right? They're the most, if not one of the most, profitable companies per capita, per team member in the world, right? And so clearly big business success. We've been talking about the bull case for El Salvador since we started this podcast, and just goes back to this notion of leapfrogging development models. Like a few years ago, El Salvador was the murder capital of the world. And now one of the most profitable companies per team member is relocating its headquarters there. That's huge, and not something to be taken lightly. The Plan B conference that I mentioned that I'm going to in a couple of weeks' time, there's reported to be quite a few folks from the Bitfinex team that are going to be present there. I know Tether generally has had sort of a keen interest and has its origins obviously in sort of like deep Bitcoin culture. So it just makes a lot of sense. I think the key thing in El Salvador, to be honest, like aside from this sort of constant bullishness, is what's going to happen. if and when Bukele ends up stepping out of power there, and what that transition looks like. There's been a lot of very particular policies that he's moved along. He has, the highest approval rating of any president at the moment right now. You go to El Salvador, people by and large love him. I know some folks generally have a very small minority of people have some qualms with his strategy, but I mean, it's genuinely, I think you have to have very particular reason to feel that way. So my point being, uh, El Salvador needs to keep up this rapid pace of development. The question fundamentally becomes what happens if there is ever a transition of power and it is not following the same thesis that Bukele has come. And I know you've seen this in Mexico, right? I mean, you like this is one of the things that we see just generally in the political landscape, right? If we go from left to right to left to right, and so curious to get your take on how do we ensure and enshrine innovation and technological progress at the heart of a country's sort of development agenda.
I think that specifically in El Salvador and Tether, it's a huge move because Tether now might be the most profitable company in El Salvador as a country as a whole. They made 5.2 billion dollars in profit in half one. That's really insane. That's larger than some banks in Mexico. That's larger than a lot, like most of companies. They are like maybe in the top 200 in the world in most profitable countries. Sorry, companies. And I think that one thing that El Salvador has, like being pretty blunt about their country and their infrastructure, is that before this, they didn't have much to lose, right? They couldn't go any worse. They were the murder capital of the world. They were captured by the mafia, and now they are in this renaissance of technology. Obviously, that's as I said, as I always say, we always need to be super critic because it's not a cheap price that they need to pay, right? They needed to do some stuff that were like borderline human right uh, violations, maybe. But after cleansing, after doing all of that, I think that they are really well positioned. I really think that I've said this a couple of times in our podcast before, but I see them maybe as the Singapore of the 21st century. I'm really interested to see El Salvador in 50 years and see how it works. Also, Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of Singapore, was not a really popular guy until everything worked, and now they are a really interesting country. So, do you see that different companies will move to El Salvador? Like, who would be the next company to move to El Salvador in your eyes?
I think that we talked last week that we've seen a few global players begin to engage in the region. I think generally it's going to be teams that see Latin America being like a really big opportunity, right? I think the digital asset service provider license is quite broad and gives people just like a safe haven in the country, which is curious, right? Because the country itself isn't like that big in crypto adoption, but maybe that's just like the starting point to then branch out into the rest of the region. So I think who we'll end up seeing sort of coming into the region will be global players such as Tether, big centralized exchanges that see LATAM as a big country. We've got a bunch of, and you guys went through the whole process as well, right? We've got a bunch of lawyers who are operating out of there. We're seeing a ton of inbound deal flow sort of coming in and global companies starting to engage there. So I'm super excited and looking forward to seeing them kind of begin to really leverage and capitalize on that.
Yeah, I think that for the next 4 years, the companies that don't move to the US, a lot of them are gonna move to El Salvador. I don't know if a lot of them, but some of them. This is basically Tether trailblazing the path for other crypto companies around the world. And with the entrance of Trump and a lot of founders moving their companies to the US, everyone that wants to be offshore, I think that at some point they are definitely evaluating El Salvador. So that's really exciting for the region. There's this spillover effect in some regions where if El Salvador is blooming, and there are a lot of people that around the El Salvador can provide services to these companies. So I think that that's really exciting for the region as a whole. And that was the I think that it was the most important news of this week, and maybe one of the most important news in crypto this week, not only about Latin America. The second news I wanna discuss with you is NuBank keeps doubling down on crypto. The first newsletter of Frontera that we're gonna put it in the show notes was an essay I wrote about NuBank being the most important crypto company, or the most important company in Latin America for crypto. It's one of the largest financial institutions in Latin America. And this week, they expanded their USDC reward program to all customers. So any customer that's holding more than 10 USDC in Nubank, they're going to receive 4% yield on an annual basis. So basically, they are giving the yield of USDC to their users. And obviously, this is a partnership between Circle and Nubank. And it's such huge news because this is the perfect example of the DeFi mullet. Fintech in the front and DeFi in the back. They get the yield from USDC, and now they are passing over the yield to their users. I think this is huge and super bullish on what Nubank will do next.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've talked a lot about the DeFi mullet thesis as well, right? And the premise is you offer end users the capacity to hold maybe on the new bank front end, it just says like USD, right? And we've previously discussed how the Brazilian real has actually taken quite a hit over the last year or two. And so naturally, people are attracted to dollars right now. Dollar liquidity across the region is very sought after. The question is like, what do you end up doing with those dollars? I mean, 4% yield is like, okay. There's certainly much more attractive yields that you can earn elsewhere, right? Ave is, depending on the day, but at least sort of 6 to 8% roughly. Something like staked USDE can offer you 2 or 3 times that. So I think this is like a good first start. I also feel there's sort of much more complex strategies that I'm excited to see, the likes of NuBank and other fintechs in the region adopt as well. And so that should be super exciting. Um, I have a question for you, Adam. Do you think that people would rather hold something like a USDC, or would they rather hold something like a Mexican peso or Brazilian real? And I'm curious because I know there have been like a few local stablecoin experiments, but I think it'd be really fun to like sort of explore that question as well. Um, just because I feel like this is, you know, we're partnering with Circle right now for Acelera, for example. Obviously, the Circle's got tens of billions of dollars out there in the markets. Um, and one thing I do think about often is like, what is the end optimal outcome here? Is it local stable coins? Is it everyone running on the dollar standard? Particularly in a market where these local currencies can trade a little bit like meme coins, right? If we look at the Argentine peso previously before Milei came into play, like so walk me through your thoughts around local stable coins versus sort of dollar hegemony.
Well, this is a great question. Actually, I was talking today about this with the founders of Felix Pago, and you, I've been thinking about this, and these diagrams of the functions of money, that this medium of exchange, store of value, measure of value or unit of value, standard of deferred payment, transfer of value, blah blah blah. I think that we're getting to a moment in time where we can segregate these different use cases of money to different assets around the world. And why do I say this? Because I see that fiduciary money is not gonna go away, and if it goes away, we are like in the Walking Dead scenario, and we don't want to be there, right? So fiduciary money will exist, and that's a good thing. But what I think about stablecoins is that Latin American stablecoins and local stablecoins they're not gonna be used to do store of value. They are gonna be used as a non-ramp to the global economy. The moment that you have a Mexican peso stablecoin, the only thing that you need to go on chain is having a liquidity pool between USDC and the Mexican peso stablecoin and then you're connected to the global crypto economy. That's the relevance of local stablecoins. And that's why they are so important on this specific use case. So, answering your question on how do I see that these local stablecoins are going to behave, they are going to be on ramps, on and off ramps. They're not going to be store of value. And they might be used for payments. But if the local people, if the LATAM people, what do they want? I think that they prefer holding a balance in dollars. Also, it depends on the type of user because there's a lot of Latin America is still a cash economy. So there's people that just want to receive their assets and do cash to cash transactions. So when they are using for specific payments, they're definitely using local currencies. Therefore, they would need stable coins to on ramp and do store of value on other assets. So that's how I see the relevance of local stablecoins.
Totally. I mean, I think the question here is like, who are you going after, right? Are you going for local small time payments, or are you going for large scale um, capital inflows? And I think there's different strategies. A lot of our work is very much so focused on B2B. And, one of the key principles that I use as a North Star for our engagements is EROI, so energy return on investment, which is basically like how much energy are you inputting into a system versus how much are you getting out of it. And as you're rightly pointing out, is if you have a small set of users that are looking to engage with a local stable coins, is that really worth your time and energy and effort, right? Like someone's going to do it. The question is like how many people do it and what the interest is in doing that, right? So I definitely think for the time being, like the smarter approach is perhaps trying to bring stronger uh, demand for dollars into the region. At the same time, I think there's also, interesting yield opportunities through government issued bonds that yield pretty high rates, but then you have to deal with like high devaluation of currencies to sort of offset that, right? So it ends up being like a net neutral at the end of the day.
Yeah. And tell us more about this partnership with Circle, because you just mentioned it, but I think that's huge.
Yeah, so Circle is joining us as well as one of the other partners in the program. Basically, we're partnering very closely with their development team, looking to onboard more developers onto the Circle development platform. Again, I just think like Circle has a really strong foot in the industry. I think for a lot of developers and builders being able to engage with the likes of, Circle's DevRel team and security teams and kind of regulatory teams as well would be super valuable for us. So yeah, I'm super bullish, very grateful for the Circle team to be sort of launching this partnership. We got lots of work to do in the region. I know this is a region Circle super bullish on, as is everyone else. Like, everyone I speak to, especially with, kind of the run up to what'll be unfolding here this year. A lot of teams are saying, hey, how can we work more in the region? How can we work more in the region? So, another interesting thing that I'd love to talk about, speaking of global engagement, is what do you think are, like we've spoken a little bit about kind of key markets, but if you were to choose two key markets in the region to operate in, and you were a global player, say the likes of a Circle or some other sort of global protocol, like how would you generally go about choosing which key market to engage with?
I think that it depends on the use case. For example, if you want to do global transfers, definitely you need to go to Mexico. The remittance corridor is the largest remittance corridor in the world, and maybe you should be talking with the guys of Felix Pago because they are crushing it. If you want to do more complex things, as people obtaining yield and people maybe leveraging their assets to obtain a loan, I think that maybe Argentina it's really advanced. And also, if you want to do more degen things, maybe Brazil is the winner. Also, it depends on what you're targeting. If you're targeting to expand really fast, I think that either you focus on Brazil and that's your only way, the only thing that you'll do in Latin America, like what Coinbase is doing. That's a perfect example. They're doubling down on Brazil and basically ignoring every other country. Or you follow the other way where you go to the Spanish speaking LATAM, starting with Mexico because it is the largest economy and is the country where we have the largest lag on crypto adoption because there's not a lot of competition. So I think that those are the two paths. Either you go deep dive on Brazil like Coinbase, or you go to Spanish speaking LATAM, like for example how what Mantle is doing, that they are investing a lot in Spanish speaking LATAM. What would be your approach?
I mean, I agree. Obviously, it depends on like, if you're a developer focused platform, if you're more retail focused,
Yeah.
like I think there's different strategies in different markets. I think we've discussed like the four key markets: Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico. I think each of those will bring like different things to you. But I do feel that having a really clear like thesis, because I feel like the other thing that really bugs me is sometimes feel like Latin America, like as a whole, right? And they don't end up recognizing sort of the nuance, the language difference. Um, and so, just being very thoughtful and cautious about, okay, who is the ideal user persona that you're going after? Where are they? How can you engage with them in the most meaningful and effective way? So I think that's like the way to go, to be honest. But yeah, so anyways, let's move on. We got a few things we want to run through still and little time, so let's do it.
Yeah. So I think the last thing that I wanna go through is this pop-up city that's happening in Florianopolis. You've mentioned a couple of times Florianopolis. I don't know how to pronounce this. Ipe Village. It's an AI and crypto pop-up city. It's gonna be really interesting. It's happening in a couple of weeks. Um, what's your take on Florianopolis? Because you've mentioned this city a couple of times, so curious about what do you think.
Yeah, so I haven't actually been myself to Florianopolis, but what I hear is, and something that we discussed previously is the geographical distribution of builders in and users in Brazil, right? So you've got Sao Paulo, which is very fintech focused, very kind of corporate, tradfi culture. You've got Rio, which is more startup, community, very vibey place. You've got Florianopolis, which is kind of young, hungry builders. Florianopolis is a beautiful island in Brazil, incredible beaches, and there's this place called the Web3 Hub. There's a bunch of just great builders out of there. And so I'm looking for this publicity. I think why I wanted to bring this on the docket is also because I think it's just great to see more experimentation around these like pop-up cities, new coordination sort of mechanisms emerge in the region. So I'm hoping to be able to make it out to Florianopolis, and looking forward to engaging more with the Ipe City team as well. But yeah, again, it's like there's the Infinita city happening soon. There's Crecimiento. There's the Florianopolis thing. And I think I genuinely believe that Latin America has a ton to benefit from like new ways of engaging in governance and collective organization. So hopefully catch you all in Brazil very soon.
Yeah, it's gonna happen from April 22 to May 22, so it's gonna be a month. Um, I think you should go. I might not go, but there are gonna be really interesting builders there, and I think that we need to get closer to the Brazilian community.
There's modular crypto that's out of Brazil. There's ETH Samba. There's also ETH Brazil, although I'm not sure what the status is there. And as always, there's always sort of these politics that sort of unfold in these different communities. But yeah, there's some great like Brazilian builders, and being able to engage closer with the region there, so they don't feel this like isolated kind of country as they often are in Latin America, I think will be super important. I've been speaking with some of the NuBank folks recently on some policy in fintech stuff recently as well, and just very insightful humans, and also just super proficient when it comes to thinking about the future of tech too. So, yeah, Brazil. I'm super looking forward to spending more time there, and I'm sure you'll be able to go back given all the work that you've done there before too.
Yeah, yeah. I speak a little bit of Portuguese. With two caipirinhas, I'm fluent. So
Nice.
I don't drink that much anymore, but it's gonna be fun. And also the final thing is February the 7th, Solana Apex in Mexico City. We are collaborating with the team of Solana. We're gonna have a couple of podcasts about Solana in Espacio Crypto, so it's gonna be quite fun. We're gonna be there. Um, are you coming? I didn't hear your confirmation.
I would like to come. It's gonna be a very busy couple of months again,
Yeah,
which is just like I'm so excited. Love traveling, and also living out of a suitcase can be a little bit exhausting. It's like almost every other podcast that we record. I think you and I are in a different location. But yeah, I think I'll be there. So my plan now is El Salvador, Honduras, Mexico, Denver, Argentina, maybe somewhere else, and then settle down for a few weeks and until I pick
yeah,
things back up again. How
yeah.
about you?
Perfect, man.
What's the travel plans coming up?
Next week I'm going to Miami. Then I'm really excited to spend a couple of weeks, maybe one or two in Mexico. Afterwards, I'm gonna go to New York, do some contact with VCs, and it's Denver. And I think that that's as long as you can far as you can plan in crypto right now. Focusing on the end of February, and then we'll see where we go. Um, but man, thank you. Great pod as always. Really insightful. Follow us at Espacio Crypto. Follow Odisea, the Acelera team. They're doing really interesting stuff. Thank you for everything that you do for the region, man. Appreciate
Oh,
you.
thank you.
And
This podcast is like I think such a great like just capstone for us on a weekly basis to just like
yeah,
recap all the news. Every time I step into conversations, I'm curious if this is how you felt, but like since we started recording this, I feel just like infinitely more informed. And huge Santi shout out to Santi as well and Rive too, who have been doing an awesome job on the research front and just like surfacing a lot of relevant and important news for us that we can then disseminate as well to all the audience. So I think that's also awesome too. So no, this outlet and this kind of engagement is great, and just like generally super stoked to be working closer with Espacio Cripto and Vandal as well. We got lots in the oven.
yeah. I think that the coolest thing is the cultural alignment. When that happens, everything flows. So thank you. Follow us. You can subscribe to the newsletter as always. Take care and see you next week.
Let's go. Peace.
Bye.